Hey, folks, thanks for joining me for this episode from EmbellishPod. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully, I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists. If you can't find me on a platform, send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com and I'll get that taken care of. You can also find video versions of this podcast on YouTube. You can find all of my links on Instagram at EmbellishPod or TikTok with the same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's also a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more.
Yeah, let's talk about let's board the maester. That was a very interesting interview.
I never that was probably the first time I was like, hell yes, on an interview. You know, like I shot my shot, and somebody was like, yeah, we think we can make that happen, and then they did, and I was like, hmm. But I enjoyed talking to Maureen. Being a father of daughters, you're a father of a daughter, seeing women kind of excel in the environment that we like to participate in is great. It was a fun conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the maester was not bad. It was well done.
It's supremely drinkable to me, and I think that maybe what the goal is I think that you can pour this for any number of people, and they're gonna thoroughly enjoy it. There's gonna be some whiskey geeks that are gonna be like, it's too low proof, or it's not
Mm-hmm.
old enough, or whatever. Most of those people are full of shit, anyways.
Oh yeah. Didn't you see what I posted? I chose violence.
Mm-hmm.
About being born in Kentucky doesn't mean that you know whiskey better than anybody, because somebody literally said that to me. It's like, it's not blood. No, it's not.
It's not. It's not.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of things that are supposed to be inherent by being Kentuckian. Then the question becomes, well, then is marrying your cousin in your blood too? Because that's a joke for the state of Kentucky. I,
That's
I'm
true.
I,
That's truly choosing violence now.
I'm a citizen born and bred. I have the ability to say this. No one calling into question. No,
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot of. I was in Salt Lake City back in the spring of 2023, and we did a walking whiskey tour. And one of the guys there um, that was running the tour made the statement that up until 2013, all bourbon had to be made in Bourbon County, Kentucky. And being the guy in the tour from Kentucky, everybody sort of turned and looked at me, and I was just like, this man's just out here making a living. It is immaterial, but man, that guy's wrong. And so they're looking at me like, is this true or whatever? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So
That's
Jack,
quite.
I need to ask you a few questions.
All
Um,
right, go for it.
what you've been a staple in the influencer and the social media community for whiskey, and not just whiskey with an E, but whiskey with a Y as well.
Mhm.
What's new with you? Like what's going on with Jack that we need to be watching out for?
Um, Truly, I've always say I love all spirits from all around the world, but truly, I think what I'm looking for is, I think my new level should be exploration. I've done a lot of American whiskey discovery. I want to go to Scotland. I want to go learn more about the history there. I'm hoping that eventually to go to Taiwan and go learn about how their whiskey is being made there, because one of my biggest my fun thing to do when people hire me to actually do tasting for them is whiskeys from around the world, because I feel like as we travel and let our palate travel through all those neat things that are happening, to every single nuances around whiskeys from around the world, it opens people's view of the world. I remember after one of my classes that I've done, this guy's like, you know, my wife always wanted to go to Ireland, but after trying this Irish whiskey, we definitely need to go, because I never thought I like Irish whiskey. I've always been a bourbon drinker, but this
Mhm,
one, I want to go and I want us to explore. I said it's a good thing to, to travel or to discover as a whiskey drinker. You people travel for food, people travel
mhm,
for, for discovering nature and whatnot. Me, I had to add whiskey to that list, right? So it's I think I've done a lot of what I call behind the camera thing. And for me, it's really about creating more content. I've been reaching out to a lot of brands, hoping for more opportunity to say, hey, I want to come to Scotland. Let me discover it as a minority content creator in the whiskey industry with the little I've learned. I want to see how I want to go see some peat, right? I want to go to Isla. I want to see how those peated whiskey are made. I want to climb the mountain in Taipei in Taiwan to see how Kavalan is aging those things up there. I think it's
mhm.
really about where I am now, more in my journey. The theoretical part of it is fine and all, but really I'm at that point where I think I need to go discover. That's where I am.
I'm gonna say if you end up in Taiwan, and you're climbing a mountain, have someone take you to a Mizunara tree because this is the thing I want to see. I want to see a Mizunara tree because that's one of the casks that they use a lot
Yes.
in China, and Taiwan, and in Japan, and it's kind of exclusive to there. And from what I understand of how what they look like, I think they're super interesting looking trees. But I need a picture. I need you to take a picture and share it with me because that's a super interesting thing. But
Yeah.
you made a point in there that I hadn't really thought about. Um, People don't bat an eye to spend five, six, $10,000 to hop on a plane and go watch a team play football. Right? Football's
Mhm,
only been around for a couple hundred years. American football specifically, it's only been around for a
mhm,
couple hundred years. But if you tell people you get on a plane to go to Ireland or Scotland just for whiskey, they're like, that's a little weird. Why would you do that? And distilled spirits have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years at this point, right? So the reality is maybe we got to flip that on in. And I agree with that. Man, we've got my wife and I sat down about 6 months ago and we started realizing our children are getting older and there's certain vacations we want to take and show them things. And so we
mhm,
put together like, oh, we only have like 6 to 8 years to get a lot of these done before college starts.
mhm.
Then we start talking about like, but what about after they're out of the house? And that's where those trips start coming into play. The let's go to Scotland, let's go to Ireland, let's go this because I don't want to pay for 4 international plane tickets. I want to play for two. Two's a lot easier, and they're not going to appreciate it until they're like 35 anyway. So, um, I like this idea of exploration beyond American whiskey.
Mhm,
'Cause American's easy. We're here, but there's a lot more to the whiskey world than that. You've in the last few years, you've hosted a series of Afrofusion events, and
mhm,
I had the wonderful opportunity to attend your event in Bardstown a couple years ago. My wife and I went, and she still talks about that event regularly. Part of it is the event. Part of it is also she's just enthralled with Bernie. Absolutely enthralled with Bernie and his and who he is.
who is
Um,
that? Who doesn't love Bernie?
it, so he's coming into the area for a local bourbon club meetup, and she could care less about the bourbon meetup, but she's like, Bernie's coming into town. I want to go to that event. We're going to go to that event in
You already
July.
know your replacement.
Y- You know, if if you got to lose,
Hey, I would
that's
lose to
fine.
Bernie. I would lose to Bernie.
Without a doubt, yeah, yeah. There's certain people like, okay, cool, no, I get it. Yeah, he's obviously cooler than I am. 100%. I don't have a
Play the
problem with that.
guitar, have a cool car, amazing tattoos, just the bad
Fantastic
boy of the neighborhood.
storyteller. He's obviously in better health than I am. Like it's just the hits keep on rolling. Bernie, don't take my wife. Um, but you've had these Afrofusion events, and there was one maybe what a couple months ago. Was the last one
Yes,
was
it was in December in Dallas.
Dallas. Is this a thing you're going to keep doing, or has that sort of season of that ended?
No, I think it really this Afrofusion cannot happen without Heaven Hill. Heaven Hill
Hmm.
has been an amazing supporter. They are the first to jump on the opportunity when the idea. when a friend of mine suggested that, I take my culture and mix it with bourbon, I thought it was a little crazy myself, because I'm like, what does American people care about African culture, or African food? But she made me look at it like, hey, it's unique. And if I
Mhm.
like it, chances are more people will like it. And I really took the idea and ran with it. But I will tell you right now, a lot of brand were hesitant. A lot of
Mhm.
brand, a lot of brand received this proposal, and they didn't react. But I can tell you right now, the team at Heaven Hill, you talk about Bernie, there's people like Jack Choate. There are people
Mhm.
like, what do you call it? Jeff Crow himself that worked there. And what do you call it? Kelsey that work in the Elisha Craig team. All these folks were just happy to do something different, first to support diversity in bourbon,
Mhm.
right? Heaven Hill themselves believe that bourbon is vast, from veterans to immigrants to all these folks. They're one of those first distilleries that said, yeah, I love different food and different that. I think our bourbon will work well. Even though they didn't have a vast portfolio to over like other companies that may have like what do you call a champagne and maybe a cognac, which will make a better dinner. It's more
Mhm.
like whatever our bourbon can do, however you can twist it to bring it to that. It was like carte blanche, go for it. So this is 2 years and 3 years now that we've been doing this together. I haven't got the call yet for 2024. I'm fingers crossed, but they are the biggest supporter. I did a few brand have reached out to do something, but I don't think they know how much Heaven Hill is investing in. Everybody think
Mhm.
you can take $1,000 and make this thing happen, but it takes so many more things to support a minority chef, to support a minority mixologist, to make sure that product, I
Mhm.
guarantee. Maybe if you're doing it at an event, I try to do it where we are supporting a minority event space owner. So to get all that done is a pretty hefty check. And
Yeah.
usually Heaven Hill was grateful enough to say, hey, we're gonna give you 3 city a year with your budget, so you can actually
Mhm.
do it. I think the next one, fingers crossed, to finish the year, because it's from April to April.
Mhm.
Maybe I was about to do Chicago, but some friends, African friends in Minnesota, were like, "We want you to do it in Minnesota here. Nothing happens here when you do your event.
Mhm.
We'll love to see it." So by next week, I will know what the next one is at. I'm probably in Minnesota, but I can't wait to have the conversation where, what I really want to see this happen. I really want to see this more on a global level, right?
Mhm.
Afrofusion, African immigrants are everywhere in the world, right? I would love to do Afrofusion in France, where we've been immigrating since our independence in 1960. People have been. My dad went to school in France, so that
Mhm.
tells you the rich African culture that is there. But no spirit companies actually coming in and say, "Yeah, let's bring our spirit and that." And I would love to do it in London, where the Nigerian, West African, Nigerian, and Ghanaian culture have always went deep there. Right? I would love to see it happen in Belgium, where one out of 15 people are probably an African when you walk there. So all
Mhm.
these countries were, like I say, the year of exploration. I would love to see more Scotch brand jump in and say, "Well, we'd love to find an Afrofusion where we can actually take those minority chefs around the world and those minority mixologists and bring them together in the room and give people kind of that experience that you've had in Barstow." So my goal is to keep doing in the US, but my bigger goal is to take it internationally.
Mhm. That's huge, and I've always enjoyed listening to you talk about stuff like this because you don't think small, right? Your ideas are usually big, and that's great, because um, it's one of it's the mindset. If you shoot for the stars and you miss, you still hit the moon, right? Like if you go big, it can come down, but you can never know how big you could have gone, right? If you
Correct.
don't shoot for what it's going to be, um, I've I've been trying to find the time where the next event matches my personal work calendar
We'll make it
because
work. I actually, for as a soundbite, 2 weeks from now
Mhm,
in Kentucky, you guys are gonna have Bourbon Classic. Bourbon
mhm,
Classic is coming in. I'm hosting an African dinner at Angel's Envy, and it's part of Bourbon Classic. So if you buy a ticket for Bourbon Classic, is on the Thursday dinner. So they have their Thursday dinner, they have their Friday event and a Saturday event. So the Thursday dinner, if you bought the package, is part of it.
mhm,
We are coming up, uh, Angels Envy, very nice folks that we just started working this year, have put together their link. They're this new, call it the bar 1010,
mhm,
where they're creating new flavors. So I've worked with Angels Envy to say, can we create almost an African stew flavor of anise, ginger, all these things where we actually extract that into a liquid, and we can make a cocktail with that while we pairing those with a dinner. So we are gonna go wild. So if anybody is going to Bourbon Classic, obviously, that dinner you don't want to miss because we are bringing the heat and the first. So if you thought you had fun at the other event, the
mhm,
the part here that's gonna make this event more elevated is the cocktails,
mhm.
because the flavors that you're gonna have with that cocktail, no one can do it like Angels. And Angels Navy is the only people that are doing this, extracting of flavor now, almost like a gin style extracting
Mhm.
of flavor. So we are coming up with some crazy ideas on how to extract those flavors and elevate the dinner. But I'm having actually a good African chef. She's a woman to actually take us home, take us home and
Mhm.
make us feel alive. And we building the concept around letting people finish their own food. So, I don't do an event without people eating with their hands. So it's gonna go
Yeah,
wild. People are gonna go home messy, and that's what makes me smile every time I'm done with an event.
it's taking some of the pretentious nature out of food, which is always a great thing. And it sounds like you're generating. And this is a phrase that I've heard on a podcast that I listen to regularly, and I've kind of locked it into my language now. You're creating cocktails that are made for people who actually season their food, right? There's these
Mhm.
cultures of folks that season their food, and
Yes,
um, my
yes.
culture may not necessarily be known for
You
that,
If
right?
you don't
But
season your food, you're gonna hate every part of that cocktail. You're gonna use words like it's spicy. You're gonna use word like it's very uncomfortable. You're gonna be sweating
mhm.
profusely. So this is the place where you come for the heat. You come for the flavor. Your palate is gonna be bombarded, and if you like those things, then you're gonna be in heaven. If not, it's gonna be between you and the gods of the toilet after that.
I enjoy that, and we can tie in here. This is so eating well seasoned and spicy food is a health benefit. I read this article probably 10 years ago that um, most cultures with significant spice they eat far less because once you eat for a little while, then your palate's blown out because you've been eating
Oh
spicy
yeah,
food and you just don't really want to eat anymore. So
correct.
it's a way to control your diet without controlling your diet. Just eat spicy foods, right? Like eat things that are there,
And,
and
and, they,
it's
and they're good for
beneficial.
you. I mean, those all
Yeah.
those spices actually help your gastric system. I tell people all the time, if you're somebody who, I mean, people talk about India all the time, which is a house of all spices,
Yeah.
and they live for a long time. And if you see how they eat, and you're like, wait a minute, what is all that? It almost gross you out sometimes, the amount of things that they put in on. But most of these people are vegetarian, and
Mhm.
but just the flavor that you get in what you're eating is a whole different level of appreciation. But also, I tell people all the time, if you don't like cuisine, you cannot taste whiskey.
No, yeah, you're right.
If you don't like cuisine, if you literally are not an avid food lover or explorer, you may be a good blender, maybe because you're looking for a specific profile. You may be a
Mhm.
good, but to be a taster, food is the only way to describe things to folks without actually them going, oh, I get it. without them going, oh, I'm confused. No, there will be no confusion when it comes. If I tell you something tastes like plum, you just have to go look for a plum. And if you have a plum, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
You know exactly what it tastes like. But when people talk about, oh, I only eat steak, potatoes every day, and they want to tell me that something tastes like something is herbaceous and tastes like honeycomb. I'm like, when did you have a time to have honeycomb? So how do you know how it will taste? Like,
Mhm.
don't tell me. Like, I literally stopped following like a few people because I've seen those people eat.
Yeah.
So immediately in my head, I say it's an immediate no for me, because if you eat that way, there's no way you can describe food for me, and
Mhm.
it's whiskey for me, and I'll be like, oh, you know what you're talking about. No,
There's no
no,
trust there. There's no trust.
I do not trust your. If you don't like food, I do not trust your whiskey palate at all. Period.
Mhm. There's very few things I won't eat. I just want to know what I'm eating. And so usually whenever I travel for work, I've got one of my friends that I work with. He's from Southern India. When we go to Chicago, I'm like, all right, I need to go to an Indian restaurant that has like legit Indian food, but I need you to tell them like I want it spicy, but I can't do Indian spicy because I'm not built that way. I know I'm not. You can take me to the top end of white people spicy. I'm fine with that,
What?
but
Yep.
don't
Don't
cross the
take you
threshold.
to. No, yeah, I always tell people there's regular spicy, African spicy. African spicy is even sometimes lower than Indian spicy, because
Yeah.
a friend of mine that's Indian actually gave me spicy curry, and I'm like, okay, dude, you are trying to. My palate was not my biggest worry. It
Hmm.
was,
Yeah.
I was like, you are trying
Later.
to make my asshole meet the devil. That's what you're trying to do.
Yes. Because I'm here's the thing. Here's the thing about me is I'm gonna eat it because I'm gonna be as respectful as I can be, and it'll be delicious, and I know it will be, but I know what's gonna happen later, and so I'm
Oh
trying
my
to
god.
just protect my own sanctity and my own
You
future, and
you
you
remind you
know.
remind me of you remind me of this story. We had, my second mom, my second stepmother married, my second stepmother, that would make me he'd make my step uncle, uh married this white lady. And during the one of the things, and this may sound gross for some people, but as a kids, there's this little bugs that come out only when it rains. But the only way you attract them is you actually place a light, and they come out when it rains. One thing about those bugs is actually you just have to put a big bowl of water, and when they hit the light, they fall in. And what, as kids, you wait, and all the bugs actually will get in. You keep them in the water because their what do you call it? The wings fall off in the water. So
Mhm.
all you have to do is just take the wings out. And these bugs are probably the most delicious thing you ever had, because you just take them on a hot pan and just
Mhm.
toast them and just sprinkle some salted water on them. And they are like the best snack. Coming to find out, those bugs actually are so nutritious. When I grew up,
Mhm.
later on, when I grew up, they're so nutritious. They're so full of vitamins and minerals
Mhm.
that people that were deficient, like in certain vitamins, people were coming some people from Europe were coming to Africa to buy those bugs, and they literally will actually turn them into pills for women to
Mhm.
regenerate their skin. And I'm like, this is literally what we used to eat as
Uh-huh.
kids. And I never thought a day in my life, like I thought about it like a year ago, and I'm like, we used to eat bugs for fun, right? And we toast this. But
Uh-huh.
like, if somebody is telling me that something tastes like a bug, I mean, like, I don't know. I've had bugs before, and these only comes. They call them, like, they're water flies or water something, and that's all they are. But they're
Mhm.
just oily, delicious, and if you put them, you didn't even need oil in the pan, because by the time you cook them and toast them, they're oily. You just have to add some salt to it, and they are all crumbly and dry. And I know it may sound gross to some people, but they're crunchy, and you just ate the shit out of these things, and you didn't even care as kid. you just kept your allowance. Those bugs were like a trading cards when you get to school between you and folks, because some people didn't have electricity. So you guys who have
Mhm.
electricity are the people that are getting the most bugs in your house. So I'm telling you, I know it sounds weird, but for me, when people say, "Well, where did you develop your palate?" I say, the amount of shit I had to eat to have the palate I have, y'all don't understand.
Variety. you
So,
have a breadth of things that you've been able to try in your life. I mean, yeah. So in North America, that's going to sound weird, but we're 350 million people out of the what 7.5 billion people on the planet.
mhm.
There's a lot of other cultures that are completely open to this idea. I mean, that I was at an event last year where someone brought some silkworm pupa in a can to try to pair with whiskey, which was not great. It sort of smelled like wet cardboard. But eating bugs is a thing that happens in a lot of cultures. And it is what it is. There are people in the United States that are eating raccoon and possum,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Which is
Oh
also
yeah. And
sort of
which
a
which
weird
for
thing
me
to do.
which for me actually even for me sounds more gross than actually eating bugs. But then obviously I can't judge them because clearly we all have our own preferences of what we like or define as good food, right?
I have to question a person immediately if you're eating a creature that has an opposable thumb, and that's a raccoon, right? Because if it can grab things like a human being, it gets a little weird for me. But that's a squirrel too, and people eat those, and
I
you know,
tell people all the time. The first time I saw a raccoon, and funny thing is, growing up in French, right? They call them raton laveur. Raton laveur is a raccoon, and
mhm,
they were only represented in cartoons because they have hands like humans. And it was
mhm,
something I grew up around. They're the first time I saw a real one, I'm like, now in Africa we believe in witchcraft, so I'm
mhm.
like, wait, you sure there wasn't a human that was bewitched to actually beat this animal? Because the way this guy jumped on the trash and opened it, just like I would open it, and enjoying this piece of chicken that I forgot to finish, that bone that he's just chewing on properly, like the way I would have, it's freaking me out right now. You sure it's like it wasn't like somebody who was bewitched and became this animal and doing things like a human? Because when I tell you I walked past and he turned and looked at me with his beady eyes in the dark,
Mhm.
and I looked at it and he kept eating the bone like I wasn't even there.
Yeah. You expect him to give you a little wave, like, "Hey,
I
how's it
know, like,
going, Jack?"
what's up, man? Like, so no way in my head it would make sense to actually go and eat that. No, that would be a negative for me.
Look, you can watch videos of raccoons washing their hands. Like they'll go into a
Washing
river and wash their
themselves,
hands.
yeah.
So I'm with you. Maybe there is some witchcraft that occurred that
I
that's
could do it.
that is a cursed human. That is a raccoon is a cursed human, and that explains a lot of um, activities that raccoons find themselves into.
I promise you, we've not even had that much whiskey to come up with these theories that we're
No,
giving
this
out.
is just how conversations go. This is what it is. I always have a good time when I get an opportunity to to chop it up with you a little bit. Um, you've mentioned being an immigrant a couple of times. I have a very specific question, and maybe you don't have an answer for this, but can we get at least a few more episodes of A Day in the Life of an Immigrant? Just a few
Oh,
more.
you know what? I'll talk to Tesu. I think Tesu, my co-host for the show, I think him moving away was a way
Hmm.
to for him to kind of refine himself, right? He's
Yeah.
redefined himself. He's getting more into personal training and kind of finding his way. A lot of things happen in Omaha here when we were together, where with the pandemic, it took really a toll on his mental health.
Hmm.
And when you get a chance to kind of refine your center, it's almost like you don't want to do the same thing over. You kind of have to refine yourself. So a
Yeah,
day
it
of
can
a
bring
life,
back some trauma, for sure.
So what?
I said it can bring back some trauma, like because you
Correct,
you
correct,
correlate it to the trauma that was occurring during the time when
correct,
you were doing the
correct.
thing that you were doing.
So I think we will eventually bring it back, but I
Mhm.
think it's more of where both of us, myself personally, I went through a lot in the last 2 years. So I think
Mhm.
it was more of, we will bring it back, but more in an environment that actually makes sense to the both of us. If we have to do it, we'll more do it more in a virtual way,
Mhm.
where we actually have like a nice setup studio where we can actually do this the right way. Because Tisha and I, we enjoy our presence, and we we
Mhm.
we have a time of our life. And but it's one of those things where I think we both have to be in a position that works. Right now, he needs time to actually build his foundation, find himself, and I respect him for that. Because
Mhm.
when you're not okay, and he moved away to a place where it's warm all the time. I know he hated the winter. He's now in Arizona. He loved his life more there. He's trying to refine, what he want to become. So I want him to kind of find himself, and I think it's going to make our conversation better. It's going to make things much better, and I think we will have more to talk about, because the a 2.5 year hiatus will really
Right.
bring us more to actually talk about. But I think it was a perfect moment that we did it. We both were very stable in where we are, and we wanted to bring
Mhm.
something to the folks. But it's yeah, we just both have to just climb this small hill in life that we're in, and once we do, I think we'll bring it back. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I knew he was getting into the training and the personal fitness stuff because I don't know, it's been maybe a year and a half ago. He posted some workout video he was working, and I had to be like, "Listen, man, my wife is on this app, so I'm gonna need you to just calm down a little bit." Um, we were talking about Bernie. I got to worry about Tesu too because
Well,
he's
you
out
too.
here making the rest of us look bad. He's doing like no handed
I,
push ups with a clock in the middle
I
or something.
troll him all the time. As a matter of fact, when I go to the gym tomorrow, I'm gonna record and troll, because he's on vacation now. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
troll him again, because he hate when him and I go work out, because I used to actually lift seriously. So
Mhm.
every time we work out, he's like, "Dude, you're a beast in the gym." And I say, don't let this one pack fool you. I love lifting, for real, for real. So I troll him all the time, but it's also a way to support him, to say, hey, you got to keep going on. Working
Mhm.
out is important for your mental health. But my son, working out is just it's a fun activity for me. I give myself a huge challenge this year,
Mhm.
when it comes to. So I decided this year, and I'll be posting about it in a couple months, as I get serious into training. This year is a pivotal year for me, so I wanted to challenge myself. I was telling, I lost my way when it comes to taking care of me,
Mhm.
because I used to run. So I was what they call an elite mud runner. So
Mhm.
I used to run a mud run every 2 weeks.
Ah.
I literally used to, for 3 years straight. So
Mhm.
before they actually went out of business, for what do you call it, for the Warrior Dash. I was what
Yep.
they call the Super Warrior. So
Mhm.
before they went out of business, I buy only one pass, and anywhere where the Warrior Dash was happening, I just walk on and start racing, because I
Mhm.
did so many of them and won so many prizes. So when I was at that point where I was 100, below 190 pound, all
Mhm.
jacked, running everywhere all the time. And since then, I put in probably about 40 pounds after that. That's why when we were getting to the end of the year, I had to make a video to remind folks that it's okay to drink, but drinking also affect your health quickly. So if you're not conscious of that, it's not necessarily because you become a drunk, but also for your own health. If you don't take dry days, and I
Mhm.
promise you, it's not gonna go the way you think it's gonna go. So one of the things I'm doing now is, this year, for my 20th year in America and my 40th birthday this year, I decided to do a 50-mile march. So it's going to be from Lincoln, Nebraska to Omaha. It'll be in August. 22 hours of marching or walking for 50 miles. So my new regiment now is, I have to walk at least 5 miles every day,
Mhm.
minimum. And for my long days, I'm doing 10, and then I'm gonna increase to 15 and 20. But it have been doing really well on my mental health, and really well on my physical health. I haven't ran one day. I used to run and I just dropped the weight. I haven't ran one day since the year started, but
Mhm.
I probably shed probably about 13 pound already of not trying and just
Mhm.
walking. I really want to do it for to challenge myself. And I think what I'm gonna do is 50 miles. I'm gonna try to entice five whiskey brand to say, if you I have to raise $2,500. So for
Mhm.
that, I'm actually going to say, if you give $500, send me your shirt. At every 10 miles, I will change and put your
Change it.
shirt on to walk the next 10 miles. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be your mobile billboard for the next 10 miles.
See, what you need to do is you need to get them to send you to two, and you start getting a partner, and somebody's going to walk 5 miles with you, right? You do all of it, but you get somebody, so now they get double the coverage, right? And so at the end of the race, those people can be waiting
No, I
for
have
you
I have
with
a
all the
partner
brand
with
shirts.
me. I have a partner with me. I say, if you put 1,000, I'll have my partner wear it too.
Yeah. I mean, if you get up to 5 grand, we'll just get a tattoo. Like we'll
we,
just
we, we-
tattoo it
we'll
on
just
us
we'll
somewhere
just
in here.
get you, but it's like the one of the things that's been happening since I've been going and walking at the gym every day. I wear a whiskey shirt every day. Like, this is the third time somebody stopped me and went, Sir, I don't mean to bother you, but do you sell alcohol?" I'm like,
Are you a liquor store owner? Like, are you just a severe alcoholic? Like, what's the
and
deal
I'm like,
here?
no. Why you ask? Say, sir, I see you here. Every time I see you, you have a new alcohol t-shirt on. And I'm like, oh, I talk about alcohol a lot. They go, oh, okay. And it's just one of those things where it makes me laugh because I have my favorite shirt, and it's like 291
Mhm.
um Beam and somebody just make beautiful athletic shirts. So I love wearing those shirts.
Yep.
So I just watch them every weekend wearing the game. So it's weird that people realize that I wear a lot of alcohol issues, but I just love those shirts. So I think I'm gonna do it at 30 days where every day I'm gonna wear a new alcohol shirt. I have to
Mhm.
lose a few pounds first. And then after that, when I get into my large shirt, because I have a lot of alcohol large shirt, I'm gonna start wearing one every day to see when is when people are gonna go, what are you doing?
It's and we're coming off of 2020, which was kind of a first in our generation event, and trying to figure out what physical and mental health is in the
Oh my
wake of that. It's just
mm,
whatever works, man. Like I think everybody's starting to get back to normal. Like we're doing the things that we were doing in 2016, 17, 18, 19.
16, yeah, yeah.
Before the world changed so drastically, but man, it's just been a lot of like survive and advance for the last 4 years because what the hell even was that? It was a unique time
Dude,
for everybody.
it was a serious unique time, and tell you what, I think we went through last year. It was more of a dry year where people were tired, like, of
Mhm,
online stuff, and that I think even on live, people don't come on live that much anymore
mhm,
because they're like, we are lived out because you are literally spending time on live online. Hell, but guess what? There's a French saying that say, "À toute chose malheur est bon," meaning to everything bad thing may be good. Right? That's
mhm,
a little definition, but to just say that, in no, for every bad thing that happened, a good was meant to happen. You and
mhm.
I, we met during the pandemic.
Yeah,
So it it's
there
one of
there are
those things
connections that
where,
were enabled
yes,
eh,
yes,
through that situation that never would
you
have been able
cannot
to happen.
deny the amount of people that met during the pandemic. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like we were more connected as folks during the pandemic because
Mhm,
I cannot list the amount of people I met, honestly, during the pandemic. Like, and some like you are friends still today. Dude, after the
mhm.
pandemic, like, where we were getting to at the end of the pandemic, you're like, "Hey, I'll be in Omaha. I'm
Yeah.
coming to see you." I'm like, and when you say what your wife said, in my head, it makes it because I'm African, so it doesn't matter.
Yep.
I will, in anybody that's my friend is welcome to my house. But when
Mhm.
your wife said, "Yeah, you going to see a stranger from the internet," the only time the story start with, "I met this person on the internet and
Mhm.
met this person." Usually, the end is more like, "And the police will call because they found your body somewhere." So it's never a good beginning of a story.
And the point is right, but the problem is that technically you were more at risk than I was because this
Correct.
is your home where your family is,
I
and
know.
I'm the stranger that's coming from states away, right? Like that's the way my mind viewed it is like I, there's almost no risk for me, right?
Correct.
Because at the end of the day, cell phones are tracked everywhere you go, right? And so if I disappear, which I'm not going to because you have a public personality that exists, like I was the threat. And honestly, I mean, let's just be honest. If you look at the history of serial killers in the United States of America,
They've
they look
always
an
been
awful lot like
traveling
me, and
around meeting people.
they look an awful lot like me and not an awful lot like you. It's what it boils down to.
Oh,
I'm
man.
probably one of the most dangerous segments of the American population, but she absolutely and will not ever let me forget that. Whenever I travel again for work, she's like, "You can go meet a stranger from the internet." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to go meet these strangers from the internet." And she positioned. She was like, "If your daughter did that, what would you say?" And I'm like, "I would yell at her. I would absolutely yell at her."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I did not care. I was like, it's for me it was fun. We got a chance to see each other. We had a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Hell, I still have the cigar box you gave me. It's I hold on to that thing because it's like it was a token of first time we
Yeah.
met, and I hold on to that.
You can't show up empty-handed. You're not supposed to, at least. That's the thing that and you never know what somebody's gonna like. And I'm like, I know he smokes cigars, so I can at least do this. This is a thing I can do. You don't show up with wine and somebody's like, man, that's a shitty wine. I'm not gonna drink that. And I can't bring you whiskey because look, right? Like, how do you bring? It's the same way. Like, people don't show up here, and I don't have near the collection you have. But people don't show up here with whiskey because they're like, what the fuck do I bring this
It
guy?
got
Like,
worse.
what?
It got worse since the last time you were here. Now I have to. I'm pushing stuff in like when
Mhm.
someone like people are asking to come to my house, I'm like you can't. There's no place to sit in my basement. I just have one chair where I record. Everything else is full of something. So
You got like a
it,
little narrow path.
yeah,
It's a whiskey hoarder.
I
You're a whiskey
created a
hoarder.
path.
Yeah,
I created a
but it's also a security system because if somebody breaks in down there, they're
Hey,
tripping
I
over
already know.
everything. You're
I
gonna hear
already
them.
know who
You know?
did it.
Yeah, it'll be loud and easy to identify. So you've been tasting a lot of things, right? You're getting the opportunity to talk about a lot of different brands, talk with a lot of different brands.
Mhm.
I'm gonna bring back in some questions. Um, what what's the thing that's happening in America with whiskey right now that you're like excited about? Or is there anything you're excited about in American whiskey?
You know what? Um, Two things I'm excited about. One has to do with new things. American single malt, right? American
Mhm,
single malt is the new, I like to say, crazy baby, crazy toddler right
mhm,
now. None know really what it's doing, but it's going around touching everything and being fun, right? American single malt is it's just that thing. They just now set the rules of it around really establishing it, but everybody's kind of doing it its way. It's fun to see the new brands doing it. I had a chance to interview 2 days ago. I had a chance to interview Stranahan, and they've been doing this for longer than everybody else. But then
yeah,
tasting their stuff compared to Virginia Distillery or that, I'm like, okay, there's a huge difference happening here in the portfolio and things like that. So I can't wait. I just 3 days ago, I got an email saying Bullet has his own American single malt now. So American single malt is like the word of 2024. I'm sure
mhm,
2025 we're gonna hear a lot of that American single malt. So hey, bring it on. Let's see what it is. Now, we were talking about the pandemic. During the pandemic, what really happened at that time? The main thing was what? Single barrels and
Mhm.
finishes. Right? Single barrels and finishes. There's a reason why I haven't put out any single barrel because I think people are single barreled out, right?
Just a lot of
So
fatigue. Yeah.
yeah, single barrels and finishes. But I think honestly, we are getting back to the point where I'm enjoying really vintage expressions.
Mhm.
So I don't know why I looked forward to the new Larceny Barrel Proof. I've looked forward to the new I just received the new what do you call it? Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, right?
Mhm.
Um I look forward to the new I want Buffalo Trace to come on, give me a new Weller Barrel Proof, right? Some vintage like Glenfiddich, um, Glenlivet, Laforgue, Lagavulin. Those things for me, it's almost like I haven't had them in so long. So when they're coming up with a variation of what is like the basis of what we know to be good whiskey, I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm more curious to actually try that because I feel like the hype around those have disappeared a little bit. So only the folks that really truly enjoy it now are looking forward to those anymore. And I think maybe the two and a half, the third thing is whiskey's coming from some weird corner of the globe. Okay. And from Peru to New
Mhm.
Zealand to China, I'm telling you, whiskey's coming from some weird corner of the world, and you gotta prepare yourself. I think I've had Pocono from New Zealand, first New Zealand official single malt coming out there. That thing was like mind blowing.
Mhm.
So those things are. I don't think people. I look at whiskey on a global scale, right? People look at
Mhm.
whiskey more on a narrow scale. I look at people on a global scale. I'm like, there's some stuff coming out of it, and I'm looking forward to what is coming on the globe. Canada is
Mhm.
coming with some heat over there that no one
Yeah.
is paying attention to. So I think there's a lot of things happening in whiskey that uh it's almost I'm pretty sure somewhere Kentucky is also worried
Mhm.
because there's a reason why big companies in Kentucky are trying to acquire some of these companies because they know that if we bring you in the family, you're not part of us and we bigger. There's a reason why Brown Foreman, unglobe and unglobe and unglobe because like
Mhm.
a lot of people don't understand. One of Brown Foreman's like handle that is producing beautiful whiskey that Europe is consuming to the top is the Scotch part of Brown Foreman that no one even paid attention to.
Mhm.
Glengossa that I just interviewed, Ben Riak, what do you call it? Ben Riak, what do you call it? Uh, what what's that one again? We got Ben Riak, and I don't have my glasses on. But these brands that are coming out of Europe that are part of Brown Forman too, that people are like, oh, you don't think that is just American whiskey that is making those brands money? They're taking on Scotch, they're taking on all these things that if you really understand the business of whiskey, you will know that there those branch matters. So why you
Mhm.
limiting your vision to whiskey just to be here? These brands, Brown Forman is not just an American company. They have their hand there. Sazerac is not just an American company, right? You have to
Mhm.
understand that too. Maybe the closest that we have to just being the only American one, maybe just Heaven Hill because they're not a big conglomerate. But if you go through the Diageo, the Campari, the Bacardi, and all those big conglomerate, they're englobing everybody in because you either go buy them, we've seen it with what wood in Israel. You either go buy
Mhm,
them and you make them part of your family so you grow and the P&L look good, or they grow so big that somewhere you're forced to beat their competition where sometimes you may lose at them. We've seen it with
mhm,
Penelope. So somewhere on the line, what's the best way to actually get rid of your competition? Make them part of your family.
mhm.
So,
And I think you touched on something and that I've been kind of mulling over for a little while. And Penelope's a prime example. They got picked up, and part of it can be competition, but I think you said there's fatigue around single barrels, and I agree with that. And I think it's maybe not so much consumer fatigue of just like not buying them. It is especially when we have the ability to order stuff off the internet or whatever.
mhm,
250 bottles doesn't go very far, right? And so when a single barrel comes out and it gets really highly touted, your odds of getting that are very, very, very slim. But things that people like Penelope are able to do is build a custom blend, right? And now
mhm,
you're increasing your bottle count to
right.
500, 600, 1,000 if you want to.
Mhm,
And I think this is what I think some North American whiskey companies are going to do is they're going to start buying up these brands that are really, really good at blending to create novel expressions so they can exploit people who still want these single barrel experiences but don't want to chase a single barrel because it's only 200 bottles. But you can do it with 1,000 bottles or a limited run, like what Barrel is
right.
doing. I think Heaven Hill looks for an opportunity to do something like that in the future because blending and Scotch has always been a thing. It's a thing to create their vintages from year to year or a unique blend or whatever it is they're going to do. It wasn't
Yeah.
always a dirty word like it is here, and it's
Yeah.
starting to pick up that same trend. And so people like Brown Foreman, who've been doing this forever elsewhere, know how to handle that.
Yeah.
But some of your brands that have been in the United States only for a long time don't, and so they've got to buy their opportunity to do that, and that's what makes people like Penelope or Blue Run or Barrel, which somebody could come along and say they want to buy Barrel, and do the
I
same
mean,
type of thing.
the chances of that happening is pretty high because they I think Barrel compared to I think Penelope made sense because
Mhm.
Penelope only did exclusively MGP.
Yep,
Barrel, I mean, dude, I did a review on the last Barrel New Year's. I haven't
it's like
posted.
8 different states.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not gonna put this on the internet. I'm like, what is what in Jesus' name is going on with eight states? So if you're doing business with 8 different states, 8 different, sources
Hmm.
of places where you get in, I don't think you're actually building that kind of brand loyalty, right? That people are looking for into what like if they're getting 100 if Barrel was doing 100% MGP and maybe doing something from maybe in Nashville or somewhere, it's
Yep.
like okay, eventually somebody's gonna go, okay, we are buying some, but when you have 8 different people you getting stuff from and no one really knows what their juice is really doing as a difference in what you're making. And don't get me wrong, I love Barrel. I love
Hmm.
what they're creating there. No one has actually done it right like Barrel because from their
Yep.
older stuff, from their castring and all that, I think they're solid as a
Hmm.
brand. But man, oh man,
And here's the thing
sometimes
I'm going to
I'm
caution you on the
confused.
eight,
I'm
right?
confused. Confusion and confuses.
Is it's 8 states, right? That's
Yes.
not 8 producers. That's 8 states. It could be multiple producers in each state, and that was because I did get a chance to talk to them on the New Year blend specifically, and they're not obviously going to share who they're from, but Lindsay made a point to go back to like this is just 8 states. There could be more than one producer in some of these states. And so, if you think about, if Kentucky's on there, you could have more than one Kentucky. That makes sense. If there's a Tennessee on there, it could be more than one in Tennessee. That makes sense. But now you're talking about from 8 states to potentially 10 distilleries or more. Like that's
You so you see how they say A marriage of blend? Yeah, this is an orgy of blend. That's what it is. Like, I couldn't even
It's a
call this a
Mormon
marriage.
marriage, right? Like
It's a
that
oh my
they do polygamy.
like, we couldn't call this a marriage anymore. It's an orgy. It's just it's raw, disgusting, and weird at the same time of all these states. And I go, what in the world is it? Like, I didn't even pay attention to it. Like, you could when I post the video, you could
Mhm.
see the surprise in my face. Like, I was like, it's a mix of eight.
That's as soon as I got the bottle and I looked at the back of it, I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, show it to my wife, like, "Can you count this? Maybe I'm seeing something's wrong here. I don't know what this is." No,
Eight.
it's absolute 8. 8 different states. And then, I look at, because they were doing that infinite, blend there for a while, and that kept growing states, and I get that because they were doing a little bit of Solera and they were,
Yeah.
whatever, like, it's just gonna keep growing that roll of states, but, um,
I
no, I
was
mean, I
like,
enjoyed it.
eight.
I'm not gonna deny I enjoyed the 24 blend, but good lord, man.
Eight? Like
Absolutely 8.
like, who are you, Beryl, to actually this is why people shouldn't ask my opinion about stuff because that at that moment there, it took me like that's why I haven't posted. I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
want to offend anybody because it was just too much.
Mhm.
I'm like, at this point, you guys are just doing everything to just confuse us because I don't understand what's going on.
They're protecting their intellectual property. It's probably a really like a 4-state blend, but they put like an eyedropper of 4 other states in it
Just to
just to
say,
be like,
you know
"Well,
what?
we gotta
Let's
put the 8
mess
states
with this,
here.
folks.
We're gonna hide the 4 that are the main part of the blend, and there's just, like a quarter of
Oh
an
my
ounce in
god.
this 10,000 bottle blend."
Let's just mess with this, folks. We know for a certain they would not know what to do if we tell them there's 20 state in this.
Right.
It was
Without a
God,
doubt.
good
Alright,
God.
so I saw you do an interview with Cognac, and this is somewhat related. I'm interested in exploring Armagnac, right?
Armagnac, yep.
You're a spirits expert.
Correct.
How should I proceed here?
So if you think of it, so do you know the difference between cognac and Armagnac?
Yeah, so Armagnac is in the cognac family, but cognacs are not always in the Armagnac family. It's sort of like bourbon versus whiskey, right? Like it's a specific region, it's a specific type of brandy, um,
So so
vaguely.
so cognac and Armagnac really are regions of grape origin,
Mhm,
right? So to make a cognac, they usually use unique grapes from
mhm,
the region of cognac, and it has to be distilled, bottle, age, and distill, age, and bottle in the region of cognac made with unique grapes. That's
mhm,
what qualifies as cognac. Armagnac could use a blend of grapes, and Armagnac is made at a usually at a more higher proof.
mhm,
So when I Armagnac is definitely the bourbon drinker brandy for sure. Cognac is a little more delicate.
mhm,
So if you're gonna explore Armagnac, one of the first Armagnac I actually fell in love with is the Lord Armagnac. I had a chance to interview the Lord family. I as a brother, and I mean, remember people in the region of Cognac and Armagnac, they've been doing this shit for a long time. You
mhm,
just don't come in and start a new Armagnac. It's from family. I actually interviewed the Jean Filou, the brand Jean
mhm,
Filou Cognac, and he is the eighth generation, right? Um, on Valentine's Day, I will be interviewing a newer cognac on the market that is Martingale cognac,
mhm,
and he's the fourth generation of maker. So if you think about it, this thing I've been going through families, but for
mhm,
somebody who want to explore Armagnac, I would definitely say 7, 8, at least 10-year-old Armagnac is where you want to start. You get more of that flavor there. But
Mhm.
contrarily to popular belief or thinking more in a whiskey belief, a 40-year-old Armagnac is not that expensive.
Mhm.
People think it's say 40 years. So as a matter of fact, right now I'm looking for a 40-year-old Armagnac so I can have on my 40th birthday. And I know it's not gonna cost me an arm and a leg.
Right.
So if you start at least at 10 and up, you're starting at the right place for an Armagnac.
Mhm.
Right? You want at least a petit champagne, or you want at least an XO on Armagnac. So when you look at it, there's a VS, VSOP, XO. But if you have a nice XO Armagnac, you're drinking good stuff.
Mhm. And that's part of it. I think if when whiskey starts to contract, cognac or Armagnac, I think becomes a place where a lot of whiskey folks go because it's a place you can get advanced age statements for significantly cheaper than what
Oh
we're used to getting, right?
yeah.
And but then that means all the age statements are going to go through the roof. So I'm trying to just get ahead of the curve on this. Like
There
I
is,
think there's a
I
whole
will
bunch
tell
of
you,
folks like me showing up.
there's two things that I truly believe have higher age statement, but don't cost an arm and a leg. One is
Hmm.
Armagnac, second is port.
Hmm.
Like I tell people all the time, one of my favorite things to do when smoking a cigar that people may not think is like the coolest thing, but makes me feel so great is one big ice cube of 40 to a 50-year port on top of it and light myself up a cigar. And the experience is divine.
Hmm.
If it's very cold outside, a 20 or 30-year-old Armagnac with a cigar always work.
Hmm.
But when I tell you a 30 or 40-year-old port with a nice juicy steak will change your life. People think old fashioned because of the sweetness, but the natural sweetness coming from the grape and the aguardiente from an older port makes
Hmm.
a truly a difference in enjoying that steak. Because remember, a lot of pork is eaten by people making port in Portugal. So
Hmm.
they know what greasy food tastes like. So when I still remember I was in Miami and I went to this guy's house and he poured me some pork on ice when I was enjoying this hefty, juicy Cuban sandwich. And I
Hmm.
was like, you know what? I'm never having a Cuban sandwich any other way. I'm not having any other way. Right. Instead of giving me he's like, oh, forget about the Cuban coffee, right? Have some pork. Since you are into whiskey, have some pork with your Cuban coffee and the Cuban sandwich. And I'm like, you know what? I freaking love this. So
It is
I
too
tell
late
people,
for you to be telling me these things because
I
I'm
know,
now
I know.
hungry.
You
Like
now
I'm
you
getting
get
hungry.
hungry. I
Now I'm
remember
gonna be
we
making a
talked about
Cuban
this.
downstairs in a minute, and my wife's gonna be like, "It is 10 o'clock. What the hell is wrong with you?" And I'm gonna say,
I
"This
know,
is Jack's
I
fault
know.
again. This is Jack."
When I tell you like yeah, we said this before. If you don't enjoy good food, you
Mhm.
cannot enjoy flavors. And I miss going to Florida because people go to Florida to go actually go do other things. I go to Florida for the food.
Yeah.
I go to Florida because Florida has a huge Jamaican, it depends on where you're in Florida, a huge Jamaican.
Mhm.
I'm getting myself some Jamaican patties, some cocoa bread, some all those things is what I'm getting in the morning, and get me a Cuban coffee, and I'm on my way. Like people think it's the weirdest thing. I'm like, no, this is life right now.
Mhm.
So
If you don't eat
yeah,
well when you travel, it's your own fault. That that
it
that,
is
that
your
is
own
that
fault.
is the
It is
absolute answer.
absolutely your own fault. No one should be mad that they've traveled and did not actually uh you know you need to explore
Mhm.
when you travel.
Earlier you mentioned something that was going to be popular in 2024, and here's my thing that's going to be popular in 2024 in American whiskey is 2024 is the year of the white port finished bourbon.
Oh
I have
yeah,
talked to
about that.
5 different brands that are doing that this year, all getting their port sourcing from different places. So it's not like the same somebody finished it and it just a bunch of
Yeah.
barrels came available. Golden Chief is doing one, and they're using a white port from a vineyard in Nebraska.
Hmm.
James Arthur, maybe.
Jim, no, James Vineyard. That's yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They've got a white port, and they're doing a finish from that that may make it out this year. And then there's a handful of other brands that are doing this, but the port thing kind of caught me on that. I was like, yeah, this is a thing that's trending up.
You know the funny thing. I don't like. I only like one bourbon in port, and it's not white port,
Hmm.
and that's Angel's Envy,
Oh yeah.
and that's because of where they get their port from. That port is fantastic to begin with. So when
Hmm.
the bourbon goes in, it only makes sense that it just is out. But the one thing I enjoy in port is Irish whiskey in port finish. But no one can understand the joy of a heavily peated whiskey finish in a port cask. That is what heaven was supposed to be like. Obviously, if you like peated whiskey, if you don't, then that's horrible.
Right. If you're out on peated, you're going to be out. But
Yeah, if you're
this
out
is
on
the
peated, then definitely this is just torture for you. But
there's a
I
lot of
tell
people
people all
that
the time,
say they're out on peated, and those are the same people that I'll absolutely go to a barbecue shack with, and they'll get the heaviest, smokiest piece of meat that they've ever had. And I'm like, you're not too
yeah,
far off of smoked whiskey at this point if you really
I
like
know.
super
It's one
smoked
of those
meat.
things you almost have to make people understand that, similarity,
Hmm.
similarity, correlations, and
How
the
you
one
approach it in your state of mind can
I know
often throw it off.
I still have not experiment barbecue and bourbons.
Hmm.
Like I know, like I did chicken,
Yep.
fried chicken, and pork finish whiskey always work, but I need to do barbecue to see what
Hmm.
work with barbecue.
Yeah,
I
it's
need to
it's
do
so
that.
fatty that it's a lot of times if you do like ribs or something, somebody uses a lot of brown sugar, and so you end up with
Yeah,
a lot of overlapping flavors, and so
overlapping flavors.
neither one gets to shine really, really well, unless you just find something that's kind of out there or crazy or whatever. But um, that doesn't
Maybe
mean you shouldn't try.
hogshead, some
Hmm.
hogshead, peated because definitely the peat and the barbecue will work really
Yep.
well. But I,
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you see, you give me homework now. I'm gonna go look for something that
Well,
bring those
you're gonna have
together.
to report back and let me know what I should be, eating from
Absolutely,
smoked meat
110.
and smoked.
Have you tried any single malt at all? Like, have you explored
Like
the
American
single
single
malt
malt or
side?
like scotches?
No, like scotches.
Yeah, yeah. No, you fed me scotch whenever I was at your house, and now
Yes, but
there's a shelf over
there's a
here.
certain things of you being polite. So I don't know if you're
No, no,
just
no,
being
no, no,
polite.
no. There
I know
there was no there was.
you've
I
enjoyed the
would.
Macallan. I believe that's you really enjoyed the Macallan. But I
Yeah. No,
wasn't sure if
I
you were
don't.
just being very polite.
I don't think there was anything that I didn't enjoy that night. And then sometimes that can be, that can be just the company that you're able to keep, the
The
family
company,
moment
yeah,
that you're having or
the
whatever.
company does affect how you taste things. Yeah.
But everything on this shelf is Scotch.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there's some Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. The Smokehead guys, they sent some stuff. I was able to drink through those. I've got a shelf full of single malt scotches over here that are samples that people have sent up, and I've worked my way through a whole bunch of stuff, and um, it it can be beautiful. It
It
can
can. It can.
be stuff that I don't, that's not so much for me, but between Dalmore, and then there's some Japanese that's floating right here. So there's a veritable United Nations of whiskey floating around me right now.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go. Because I always tell people, I say, you don't limit your palate, right? That's my
Hmm.
major thing. Don't limit your
Yeah,
palate. A lot of people tend to limit their palate. And I say, don't do that. You'll be surprised that you are a Scotch lover, or you'll be surprised that you are, a Japanese whiskey lover, and you may be surprised what you end up actually loving. So
yeah. There's very few things that I've come into that I'm like, this is just markedly bad, right? It may be that I don't like it in this moment,
yeah,
but there is a moment for a lot of things. Uh, if I've been drinking, like a super sweet whiskey all night long, and somebody hands me some really, really, really strongly peated Bruichladdich or something, it may not be some Octomore,
yeah,
whatever. Like, may not be the right moment for that. But
yeah,
um, if I start with Octomore, and maybe things are right, it's situational. It's largely
yeah. No,
situational for
when
me.
when when you drink peated whiskey, I tell people all the time, if you start with peat, stay right there. Don't you move, because chances of
Yeah,
you don't move. Just stay where you are, because you got yourself in a deep end, and
yeah.
there's no chance of coming back.
And that's the thing that's tough for me is, like, whenever I did get to taste through the stuff from the Smokehead guys, I had to drink one and then wait a day and then drink another one and wait a day and then drink another one, so that way I could actually, the first one is different than the second one,
The
right? And
second
if you
one, yeah,
drink a smoked whiskey and then you go to the next one, you don't get to experience that kind of onslaught of what the smoke is right off the rip,
man.
which can
It
be
depends,
valuable.
man. It depends on really your level of expertise. If you used to
Mine
drinking
is not high enough for that. That is mine is not high enough for that.
if you used to drinking peated whiskey, then obviously
Mhm,
it doesn't bother you at all. You're like, okay, I get it. You know,
mhm,
you can switch from one to the other. Especially, I think a friend of mine made me run through the ringer because we tasted 10 different Octomore one day, and these are
mhm.
all cast strength. So obviously,
Yeah.
finding the difference between those, the variance between those two can be quite challenging. But it
Mhm,
also challenges you personally to go, hey, I can, you're already in the peat, right? So I say,
mhm.
well, I tell people, when you're already in the peat is irrelevant anymore. And now the
Right.
cast variation is what you're looking for.
Yeah. And that's when I finally, when I was tasting for Profile Beyond the Peat, I drank them all together, right? Because
Yeah,
I'm in the peat, and the next one, it's not as strong of a peat impact or whatever. But I
yeah,
wanted that first sip. What does this, if this is the first one I had of the day, what is its peat like? And then the next day, it's like, all right, this is the first drink I had. What is its peat like? And
correct.
just to try to see the variation of how it hits me. And it was a fun experiment. Some peat I like, some peat I don't. That's I think for a lot of folks, and sometimes it's just not for me.
Yeah,
And
no,
there's
it's
there's
and
there's
it's
North
not for
American peat.
everybody. It's not necessarily for everybody, and I have to remind people that, because
Mhm.
you know, uh, now that you mentioned the smoke head, I'm like, I never took out this weird fancy glass of theirs.
Listen, I love this glass. I really do. Like, it is one of the most, and I'll say this, and I hope they appreciate it. Like, it is one of the most pretentious glasses that exists, right? But I can, how sometimes you pick up a piece of glass that a human being made, and it wasn't made on
Yeah,
a factory line. Like, you
yeah,
can tell that with this, it has a heft to it. Like, there's a distinct heft to
yeah.
it that
I feel like
feels
the
human
reason why
made.
I actually didn't try to drink in it, because it made me feel I'm trying to sign a pact with the devil.
And which way, which part of it are you supposed to drink out of? Right? Are you supposed to drink out of the bottom part or the nose
Yeah,
part?
is it the
Because
is it the is it a sauce part? to pour the sauce part.
Exactly. Like, am I funneling this in or whatever? And I
I,
appreciate it for the smelling part. I get that. I know what that's all about. But I drink off of the bottom part because I'm not drinking off my nose. Plain and simple. This is going right here. That's fine. But my nose touches up here. I'm not putting my mouth on it. I know where my
I,
nose has been, and I know
I
it's
do.
clean, but I'm just not.
The first time I keep looking at it, and I'm like, you know what? I should probably drink out of it, but let me not.
It is. It's 100%. The next meetup I go to. It's going with me.
Yeah,
Uh,
just to be.
Mainly just to screw with
Did
people
you see
because
what I
they.
posted the last time about just taking the weird glass with you?
Uh
And
huh.
people ask, like, be like, "What's a Glencairn?" Like, what? Why do you act like this? And I just wanted to do something so weird, and I
Hmm.
love doing that. Just make people feel uncomfortable when I'm doing this. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, if you show up with the Bane mask of whiskey glasses, people are going to ask questions because you look
Yeah,
like Bane when you put that over your face.
like the
Um,
issue. I feel like should I come with an instruction? Like, this is how you should drink it.
well, and that's the thing is, I don't know that they have instructions. I think they're going to tell you, I don't know, however you want to use it, man. We just thought it's
Mm-mm.
cool. Like, 'cause
No,
that was very much the vibe I got.
I am very much so concerned.
Yeah. Well, Jack, it's getting late. I've kept you
It is that
probably
time.
longer than I needed to at this point.
Oh yeah, no, 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 no. You're fine. I appreciate you having me on and we chatting and um, you know, it was interesting. We actually stayed longer than we even this whole thing started way longer.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we got to
There's the
cut.
first 45 minutes that were not recorded, and those are always the best bits. Those are the bits that are for us. The rest of the
Yes,
world doesn't need
yes.
to know about that. You
It's
know,
no, it's I'm glad we're doing this. I'm glad it's fun. I'll make sure I tell Tesu that people miss a day in the life of an immigrant, and we need to he need to get his six-pack quickly so we can actually get back to
ev-
business.
every single time I open up, because I use Overcast as my podcasting
Yeah,
app, and it'll show, when you're on the basic home screen, it's like, all right, here's the podcast that you've listened to in the past, and because of the alphabetical order, A Day in the Life is the
a
second
day
one, so it's
is
always.
the first one. Yeah,
I'm still subscribed. It's still
yeah, okay.
subscribed here.
Yeah,
If
he,
one
he
ever
even
shows
sent me,
up,
he
it
even sent
automatically
me a
is here.
message the last time. Yeah,
You know.
yeah,
Well, Jack, I'm gonna
yeah,
let you go to bed.
yeah. No,
We're
no
gonna have to
problem.
do this more often than every 2 years.
And yes, we do. And
Yeah.
if you're in Louisville in that time, I can always
Mhm.
try to finesse to see if maybe I can get you a ticket to actually
Yeah.
come to that dinner because I know how much you enjoy you do enjoy the food.
I'm a thorough food enjoyer. Um, but yeah, it was great catching up. Like I said, we'll do this again very, very soon.
No, absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode from the Embellish Pod. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review on whatever platform that you're consuming this on. Leave a comment if possible. Hit me up on social media on TikTok or Instagram using EmbellishPod. Give me a follow and you can keep up with what's going on here. I can be found at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, accounts, and contact details. Thanks for stopping by.